The Prisoner's Gambit. The observation deck of the Vraxian warship Dominion gleamed with an almost obscene opulence. Crystalline viewports stretched from floor to ceiling, offering a panoramic view of the conquered human colony below. Commander Thex stood with his 4 arms clasped behind his back, mandibles clicking in satisfaction as he watched his prisoners being led onto the bridge. Cassandra Reeves stumbled as the guard shoved her forward, but she refused to fall. Her dark skin was smudged with dirt, her curly black hair matted with dried blood, but her eyes remained sharp and calculating. At 16, she was the youngest tactical officer ever commissioned by the Earth Defense Fleet. Now she was just another prize for the Vraxian Empire's collection. The human prodigy, Thex's translator, crackled as he turned to face her. I expected someone larger. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the starlight, sending rainbow refractions dancing across the deck. Cassandra said nothing, studying the bridge layout instead. 3 exits. 22 guards. All armed with pulse rifles. The tactical computer in her mind never stopped working, even now. Your silence won't save you, Thex continued, stepping closer. The Emperor himself is interested in your capabilities. Your tactical innovations during the Centauri campaign were most impressive. For a primitive species. If we're so primitive, Cassandra's voice was hoarse but steady, why did you need to ambush our diplomatic mission? Afraid we might actually succeed in building alliances in this sector. A ripple of clicking sounds, Vraxian laughter, filled the bridge. Thex's mandibles twitched with amusement. Diplomacy is for the weak. The strong take what they want. Your species will learn this lesson, starting with you. He gestured to the viewport, where a massive arena complex dominated the landscape of New Victoria Colony. Tomorrow you'll face our greatest weapon in the grand arena. Your death will demonstrate the price of defying the Empire. The dragon, Cassandra said quietly. She'd heard the rumors, a creature of impossible size and power, used by the Vraxians to execute particularly troublesome prisoners. Some said it was a bioengineered monster. Others claimed it was as ancient as the stars themselves. Ah, so you know of it. Thex's compound eyes glittered. Good. Then you understand the futility of your situation. Though I must admit, I'm curious to see how your tactical mind approaches certain death. Cassandra allowed herself a small smile. Everything is tactical, Commander. Even death. The guards led her away to the detention block, but not before she caught a glimpse of something through the viewport, a flash of crystalline scales in the arena below, shimmering like captured starlight. Her mind was already working, analyzing, planning. The Vraxians saw her youth as weakness, her humanity as primitiveness. But they didn't understand what made humans truly dangerous. It wasn't their technology or their strength. It was their ability to turn disadvantages into advantages. To find allies in the most unlikely places. To never, ever give up. In her cell, Cassandra closed her eyes and began to plan. Tomorrow she would face the dragon. And she would show the Vraxians exactly why underestimating humans was their greatest mistake. The night cycle passed slowly. Through the energy barrier of her cell, Cassandra could hear the distant sounds of the arena being prepared. The guards changed shifts 3 times. She memorized their patterns, their movements. Every piece of information could be useful. She thought of home, of Earth's gleaming spires and her younger sister's laugh. Of the academy where she'd learned to turn battle into mathematics, conflict into equations. The instructors had called her gifted. The other cadets had called her strange. Neither group understood that she simply saw the universe differently, as an intricate web of patterns and possibilities, each decision branching into countless potential futures. Now, facing what the Vraxians intended to be her final dawn, Cassandra began to see new patterns forming. The dragon wasn't just a weapon, it was a prisoner, like her. And tomorrow, she would either find a way to turn that shared captivity into an alliance, or she would die trying. Either way, she would show the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their weapons or ships, but in their ability to change the rules of the game entirely. Wings of Defiance. Dawn broke over the arena in shades of crimson and gold. Cassandra stood at the entrance to the holding chamber, her prison jumpsuit replaced with the traditional execution garb, a simple white shift that seemed to mock the solemnity of the occasion. Above, the stadium seats were filling with spectators from across the Empire, their crystalline bodies creating a kaleidoscope of reflected light. The guard captain, a Vraxian female with iridescent plating, prodded Cassandra forward with her shock staff. Time to die with dignity, human. Though I doubt your kind understands the concept. Cassandra didn't respond. Her attention was fixed on the massive door ahead, behind which waited the Empire's most fearsome weapon. As it began to rise, she caught her first real glimpse of the dragon. The creature was magnificent. Its scales weren't just crystalline, they were like living diamonds, each one containing what looked like a universe of stars. Its wingspan could have shadowed a small ship, and its head alone was larger than a shuttlecraft. But it was the eyes that captured Cassandra's attention, deep pools of swirling silver that held something the Vraxians had clearly missed, intelligence. The crowd roared as she was thrust into the arena proper. The dragon's head swung toward her, nostrils flaring. Cassandra stood her ground, her mind racing through probability calculations. The creature's movements were precise, deliberate. Not the actions of a mindless beast. Great One, she said softly, her voice carrying in the sudden hush that fell over the arena. They've imprisoned you too, haven't they? The dragon's eyes narrowed. In the VIP box above, Commander Thex leaned forward, mandibles clicking in confusion. This wasn't how executions usually proceeded. Cassandra took a careful step forward. My name is Cassandra Reeves. I'm a tactical officer from Earth. And I think you and I might be able to help each other. The dragon's head lowered until it was level with her. This close, she could see the complex patterns within its scales, not random at all, but mathematical sequences. Her heart raced as she recognized some of them. They were navigational coordinates. You're not from this galaxy, she whispered. You're a traveler. Like us. A voice filled her mind, ancient and resonant. You see much, small one. More than the crystal shells who keep us both captive. Cassandra's breath caught, but she maintained her composure. They think size equals strength. That youth equals weakness. Want to help me prove them wrong? The dragon's mouth curved in what could only be described as a smile. I am Nexus, walker between stars. And you, Cassandra Reeves, are the first being in 3 centuries to speak to me as an equal. In the stands, confusion was spreading. The dragon should have attacked by now. Commander Thex rose from his seat, shouting orders. Guards began moving toward the arena floor. They come to force my hand, Nexus's mental voice carried a note of dark amusement. They have controlled me through a neural suppressor embedded in my primary nervous system. But they never considered that I might find an ally small enough to reach it. Cassandra's tactical mind instantly grasped the implications. Where? Base of the skull. 3rd scale from the left dorsal ridge. But the timing must be perfect. Guards were entering the arena now, shock staffs crackling. Thex's voice boomed over the speakers, kill her. Kill her now. Cassandra began moving, her steps casual, as though she were simply accepting her fate. 20 seconds until they're in optimal shock staff range, she murmured. Can you create a distraction? Nexus's response was immediate and magnificent. The dragon reared up, wings extending to their full span, and unleashed a roar that shook the entire arena. The guards faltered, some dropping their weapons to cover their auditory organs. In that moment of chaos, Cassandra sprinted, not away from the dragon, but toward it. Her hands found purchase on the crystalline scales, each one a perfect handhold as she climbed. Guards were firing now, energy bolts sizzling past her. Nexus's tail swept out, scattering them like toys. 10 seconds. Cassandra called, reaching the base of the dragon's skull. Her fingers found the scale Nexus had described. It was warmer than the others, humming with artificial energy. Be warned, small one. When the suppressor falls, there will be feedback. Just don't drop me, Cassandra grunted, working her fingers under the scale's edge. The neural suppressor was there, a black disk of Vraxian technology, pulsing with malevolent purpose. She gripped it firmly. 3, 2, 1. She ripped it free. The effect was instantaneous. Nexus's entire body went rigid, a surge of long-suppressed power coursing through the dragon's massive frame. Cassandra clung desperately to the scales as energy crackled around them both. Then Nexus's mind slammed into hers with its full, unrestrained force. 3 centuries of imprisonment, of forced servitude, of watching countless innocents die for the Vraxians' entertainment, it all poured into her consciousness. But with it came something else, knowledge. Star maps. Hyperspace routes. Tactical data about the Empire that would take their strategists years to compile. Above them, Commander Thex was screaming orders to seal the arena. Too late. Nexus's wings snapped open, power rolling off them in waves of crystalline light. Hold tight, Cassandra Reeves. Let us show these crystal shells what happens when they underestimate their prisoners. The dragon launched into the air, plasma beginning to gather in its throat. The force field above the arena sparkled as emergency protocols engaged, but Cassandra had already spotted its weakness. There. The power conduits feed through the northwest tower. Hit it with everything you've got. Nexus's response was a beam of pure stellar energy that turned night to day. The tower exploded, taking the force field with it. As they soared through the gap, Cassandra caught a glimpse of Commander Thex's face, his compound eyes wide with the sudden realization that he had not just failed to execute a human prisoner, but had given her command of the Empire's most powerful weapon. Where shall we go, small one? Nexus's mental voice held a note of genuine curiosity. Cassandra grinned, the wind whipping through her hair as they climbed into the storm-streaked sky. First, we free every other dragon they've enslaved. Then we show the Vraxian Empire exactly why they should have accepted our offer of diplomatic relations. As they soared toward the first of many battles to come, Cassandra felt something she hadn't experienced since her capture, hope. The Vraxians had wanted to make an example of her. They had succeeded, just not in the way they'd intended. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from overwhelming force, but from understanding that true strength lay in finding common ground with those everyone else dismissed as monsters. Storm of Retribution. The Vraxian shipyards stretched across the orbit of Helios Prime like a glittering web of crystalline structures and half-built warships. Cassandra watched from Nexus's back as they glided silently through the debris field that served as the facility's outer defense perimeter. 3 days had passed since their escape, and in that time, they'd already disrupted 6 supply convoys and freed 2 smaller dragons from remote outposts. But this was different. This was their first major strike at the heart of the Empire's military machine. There are 23 other dragons held in the central containment facility, Nexus's thoughts rippled through her mind. Each equipped with neural suppressors like the one you removed from me. Cassandra's fingers traced the patterns on Nexus's scales, her tactical computer of a mind processing the information flowing through their shared connection. And each one guarded by twice the security we've faced before. They learned from our escape. They learn, Nexus agreed, but they do not understand. They see our bond as an aberration. They cannot comprehend that strength flows from trust, not control. A patrol of Vraxian interceptors passed beneath them, their crystalline hulls catching starlight. Cassandra held her breath until they were gone. The stolen officer's uniform she wore might fool ground troops, but it wouldn't stand up to close inspection. The holding cells are in the central hub, she whispered, though she knew Nexus could hear her thoughts just as clearly. But first we need to access the main control center. If we can't disable the facility's defense grid, we'll never get the others out alive. You have a plan. It wasn't a question. After 3 days of working together, Nexus had come to recognize the particular flavor of Cassandra's thoughts when she was 3 moves ahead of their opponents. The Vraxians think in straight lines. Attack, defend, counterattack. But you and I. She smiled grimly. We're going to show them what happens when you combine human improvisation with dragon wisdom. They dove through a gap in the sensor net, Nexus's crystalline scales adapting to match the ambient radiation of the debris field. It was a skill Cassandra hadn't known dragons possessed, just one of many surprises she'd learned about her newfound ally. The control center was housed in a towering spire of living crystal, its faceted surfaces reflecting the light of distant stars. Guards patrolled the external platforms, their armor distinguished by the red markings of the elite command corps. They are led by Supreme Commander Vex, Nexus provided. The one who first developed the neural suppressor technology. He takes particular pleasure in dragon subjugation. Cassandra felt the dragon's anger, not hot like human rage, but cold and precise like the space between stars. Then he'll be particularly upset when we turn his life's work against him. Their plan was audacious, borderline insane by conventional military standards. But conventional thinking hadn't gotten Cassandra this far. Nexus dropped her off on a maintenance platform, their minds still linked despite the physical separation. As the dragon vanished into the debris field, Cassandra straightened her stolen uniform and approached the security checkpoint with practiced confidence. Maintenance inspection, she announced, holding up the forged credentials they'd taken from their last raid. Commander Thex sends his regards. The guard's mandibles clicked suspiciously, but the credentials checked out, they'd made sure of that. As she was escorted inside, Cassandra felt Nexus positioning himself above the facility, waiting for the signal. The control center was a marvel of Vraxian engineering, all crystalline displays and holographic interfaces. Engineers moved between workstations, monitoring the facility's countless systems. None of them spared more than a glance for another maintenance worker. Cassandra made her way to an auxiliary terminal, her movements unhurried. Through her link with Nexus, she could sense the other dragons below, their minds dulled by the suppressors but not entirely silent. They were waiting, hoping, somehow aware that something had changed in their long imprisonment. She began the sequence they'd planned, using access codes gleaned from their previous raids. A diagnostic subroutine here, a system check there, nothing suspicious enough to trigger alarms, but each command part of a larger pattern. Then the doors hissed open, and Supreme Commander Vex entered the control center. The Vraxian commander was larger than others of his kind, his crystalline exoskeleton scored with the marks of countless battles. But it was his eyes that caught Cassandra's attention, compound organs that held no trace of emotion, only cold calculation. Report, he commanded, and Cassandra felt her heart skip as his gaze swept the room. Steady, Nexus's thoughts steadied her. Remember the pattern. 3 more sequences. She kept working, even as Vex moved through the control center. The commands were nearly complete. Just a few more moments. An alarm blared. Unauthorized access detected, one of the engineers announced. Section 7, Terminal 3. Cassandra's terminal. Vex's head snapped toward her, mandibles spreading in recognition. The human child, he hissed. How dare dash. She slammed the final command into the system. Throughout the facility, every neural suppressor simultaneously deactivated. The result was beyond even her calculations. 23 dragons, their minds suddenly free, unleashed 3 centuries of collective rage. The holding facility erupted in chaos as massive crystalline forms burst from their cells. Above, Nexus dove from his hiding place, plasma breath cutting through the facility's outer defenses. You fool, Vex snarled, reaching for her. You have no idea what you've done. These creatures, they're not mere prisoners. They're weapons we've spent centuries perfecting. Without the suppressor's dash. Without the suppressors, Cassandra cut him off, they're people. People you enslaved. And now? They're free. The facility shuddered as dragons burst through multiple levels, their combined power overwhelming systems designed to contain them individually. Through her link with Nexus, Cassandra felt their minds awakening, ancient, powerful, and very, very angry. Now, small one, Nexus called. It's time to leave. She ran for the window as Vex shouted orders, his precious control center crumbling around him. A crystalline shape darker than space itself appeared outside, Nexus, waiting. Cassandra didn't hesitate. She jumped. As Nexus caught her, banking away from the disintegrating facility, her mind filled with new presences, the thoughts of 23 freed dragons, each one adding their knowledge and power to the collective consciousness she shared with Nexus. What is our next move, Cassandra Reeves? The question came not just from Nexus now, but from all of them. She looked back at the chaos they'd unleashed, the burning shipyards, the fleeing Vraxian ships, the liberated dragons soaring into space on wings of crystalline light. This was more than escape now. This was revolution. Now. She grinned, feeling the combined power of human tactical genius and dragon wisdom flowing through their shared bond. Now we show the Empire what true strength looks like. Behind them, the first rays of Helios Prime's sun caught the wings of their newly freed allies, turning the darkness of space into a dawn of liberation. The storm of retribution had only just begun. Breaking chains. The bridge of the Vraxian dreadnought Immortal Dominion lay in ruins. Crystalline panels sparked and crackled, their usual pristine surfaces scarred by dragon fire. Supreme Commander Vex stood amid the destruction, his armor blackened but unbroken, as he watched the tactical display with cold fury. 27 colonies in 14 days, his executive officer reported, mandibles clicking nervously. The dragons strike without warning, free the slaves, and vanish before our response fleets arrive. And at every target. He hesitated. Speak, Vex commanded. At every target, survivors report seeing the human child. She rides the Alpha Dragon, the one designated Nexus. They say she speaks to the slaves, tells them stories of freedom that spread like wildfire through the labor camps. Vex's crystalline fingers traced the pattern of attacks on the display. Not random strikes, he realized. Each target weakened a specific part of the Empire's infrastructure. This was a campaign orchestrated by a tactical mind that saw patterns where others saw chaos. Prepare the World Breaker, he ordered. It's time to show these rebels what happens when they face the full might of the Empire. Light years away, Cassandra sat cross-legged on a ridge overlooking the latest liberated colony, her mind linked with Nexus and the growing network of freed dragons. The former mining world of Tartarus III stretched below them, its endless quarries now silent as former slaves celebrated their freedom. You are troubled, small one, Nexus observed. The great dragon lay curled around the ridge, his crystalline scales reflecting the light of 3 moons. The Vraxians are holding back, Cassandra said, her tactical mind spinning through possibilities. These victories came too easily. Vex is smarter than this. Perhaps you underestimate our strength. We are now 24 dragons strong, each with a chosen rider from among the freed slaves. Your strategy has proven flawless. No strategy is flawless. Cassandra stood, pacing as she thought. We've been so focused on freeing slaves and dragons, we haven't asked ourselves why the Empire's main fleet hasn't moved against us. What are we missing? Her answer came in the form of a massive shadow passing over the moons. Both Cassandra and Nexus looked up as a ship emerged from hyperspace, a vessel larger than anything she'd ever seen. Its crystalline hull seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it, and at its heart pulsed a core of impossible energy. The World Breaker, Nexus's mental voice carried ancient dread. Vex's masterpiece. A ship powered by the essence of enslaved elder dragons. Cassandra's blood ran cold. Elder dragons. The oldest and most powerful of our kind. We thought them extinct, killed in the first wars. But it seems the Empire found other uses for them. The Worldbreaker's presence sent ripples through their mental network. The other dragons and their riders felt it too, the twisted power at the ship's core, the pain of the imprisoned elders. A transmission cut through all frequencies. Vex's voice, dripping with satisfaction, attention, rebels. You see before you the true face of Imperial power. Surrender now, return the dragons to Imperial control, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will demonstrate this vessel's capabilities on the population below. Cassandra's mind raced. The Worldbreaker's energy readings were off the charts. If those weapons fired, Tartarus III and its newly freed people wouldn't stand a chance. Options, she asked, both to Nexus and through him to the other Dragon Rider pairs. A frontal assault would be suicide, came the thought from Lyra, a former slave who now rode the Dragon Starweaver. That ship's defensive screens are powered by Elder Dragon energy. We cannot abandon these people, added Marcus, another rider whose Dragon Eclipse specialized in stealth attacks. Not after giving them hope. Cassandra closed her eyes, letting the tactical computer in her mind process everything they knew about Vraxian technology, dragon capabilities, and the strange new powers they discovered through their bonds. A plan began to form, desperate, probably suicidal, but with just enough probability of success to be worth trying. Nexus, she said slowly, you said elder dragons are more powerful than regular dragons. What exactly does that mean? Their connection to the fundamental forces of the universe is deeper, Nexus explained. They can manipulate space, time, energy itself. It is why the Empire sought to capture and use them, rather than simply killing them as they did so many others. And our connection, this bond we share, it lets us tap into dragon abilities, right? That's how the other riders and I can help you coordinate, enhance your powers. You are suggesting. Nexus's thoughts darkened with concern. No. The energy involved in connecting with an elder dragon's power would burn out a human mind. Would it? Cassandra turned to face her friend, her partner. Or is that just what the Vraxians assumed, because they never bothered to try understanding dragons as anything but weapons? Above them, the Worldbreaker began powering up its main weapon. They were out of time for debate. Everyone else, get the colonists to the emergency shelters, Cassandra ordered through the mental network. Nexus and I are going to introduce Supreme Commander Vex to a very old friend. You do not even know if the elders will listen, Nexus protested even as he crouched to let her mount. Their minds may be too far gone from centuries of enslavement. Cassandra settled into her familiar position between Nexus's shoulder blades. Then we'll give them something worth coming back for. Revenge. They launched into the night sky, a single crystalline shape against the vastness of space. The Worldbreaker's weapons tracked them, but didn't fire. Vex, she guessed, wanted to capture rather than kill such a valuable weapon. That was his first mistake. As they approached the massive ship, Cassandra opened her mind fully to her link with Nexus. Then, together, they reached for something deeper, the ancient, tortured consciousness at the Worldbreaker's core. The contact was like touching a live wire. Power beyond imagining coursed through their shared connection. Cassandra screamed, her body arching as centuries of elder dragon knowledge and rage poured into her mind. The last thing she heard before consciousness faded was Vex's voice, no longer smug but edged with the first traces of fear. What are they doing? Stop them. Stop them now. But it was too late. The elder dragons had heard their call. And they were awake. Dawn of liberation. Consciousness returned to Cassandra in waves of fire and starlight. She was still on Nexus's back, but everything had changed. The universe itself seemed different, viewed through the lens of elder dragon perception. She could see energy flows, temporal currents, the very fabric of space rippling around the Worldbreaker like water around a stone. Welcome back, small one, Nexus's thoughts carried new depth, transformed by their shared connection to the elders. You survived. Did it work? Her voice was ragged, but her mind was sharper than ever, expanded by the ancient knowledge flooding through their bond. See for yourself. The Worldbreaker's crystalline hull was fracturing from within, veins of golden light spreading through its structure like cracks in ice. Through their enhanced perception, Cassandra could see what was happening. The elder dragons were awakening, their combined consciousness reaching out to join the network she and Nexus had built. Inside the massive ship, alarms blared as systems began to fail. Supreme Commander Vex watched in horror as the power core's containment fields fluctuated wildly. Impossible, he snarled. The suppressors are still active. The elders cannot be breaking free. But they were. The Vraxians had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that dragon consciousness was limited to individual minds. They never understood that dragons, especially elders, existed as part of a vast, interconnected web of thought and energy. And now Cassandra and Nexus had shown them the way back to that ancient network. Now, young ones, a new voice echoed through their shared consciousness, ancient and powerful. Let us show these crystal shells the true meaning of power. The Worldbreaker's hull burst open like a chrysalis, and from its shattered core rose three figures that defied comprehension. The elder dragons were easily twice the size of Nexus, their scales shifting through colors that human eyes were never meant to see. Where normal dragons breathed plasma, these creatures seemed to exhale pure starlight. Vex's response was predictably militaristic. All ships, open fire. Destroy them all. The Vraxian fleet unleashed everything they had, energy beams, plasma torpedoes, temporal disruptors. But the elder dragons moved like dancers through the barrage, their scales bending light and energy around them. Physical weapons meant nothing to beings that could manipulate the fundamental forces of spacetime. The fleet is not our true target, Cassandra sent through the network to all their allies. Focus on the planet. The people we came to save. She and Nexus dove through the chaos of battle, leading a squadron of younger dragons and their riders in a defensive formation around Tartarus 3. Above them, the elder dragons began to weave a pattern of pure energy, their combined power creating something even Cassandra's enhanced perception struggled to understand. What are they doing? She asked Nexus. Something not seen since the ancient days. They are creating a gateway, a path through spacetime to a safe haven. Somewhere beyond the Empire's reach. Through their bond, Cassandra felt the immense power required for such an undertaking. The elder dragons were drawing on the energy of stars themselves, careful not to take too much from any one source. It was like watching artists paint with supernovas. Vex wasn't going to let them succeed without a final attempt at victory. The Supreme Commander's personal shuttle burst from the dying Worldbreaker, armed with weapons specifically designed to hurt dragons. His voice cut through all frequencies. You think you've won? You've only proven why beings of such power must be controlled. Without order, without hierarchy, there is only chaos. You never understood, Cassandra projected her thoughts so all could hear, human and dragon alike. True power doesn't come from control. It comes from trust, from cooperation, from believing that different species can work together as equals. The shuttle's weapons fired, but Nexus moved with liquid grace, his scales deflecting the attack. The other dragon rider pairs closed ranks around them, their formations guided by Cassandra's tactical mind and powered by dragon strength. Together, Nexus called, and 24 dragons breathed as one. The combined plasma blast hit Vex's shuttle with the force of a small sun. The Supreme Commander had just enough time to realize that his entire understanding of power had been wrong before his vessel became a brief, bright star in the night sky. Above, the elder dragons completed their working. Space itself opened like a flower, revealing a passage to somewhere else, a place where the Empire had never reached, where dragons still soared free among the stars. It is done, the eldest of them announced. A new home awaits, for all who seek freedom. Through their network, Cassandra coordinated the evacuation. Dragons carried shuttle loads of former slaves through the portal while others maintained a defensive screen against the remaining Vraxian ships. The Empire's fleet, leaderless and facing power beyond their comprehension, began to retreat. "Will you go with them?" Cassandra asked Nexus as they watched the exodus. "Through the portal. It's your ancestral home, after all." "My home," Nexus replied, "is wherever my rider leads. Our bond is not just about power or tactics. It is about choice. And I choose to stay, to help others find their freedom." Cassandra smiled, placing her hand on Nexus's crystalline scales. Together, they watched the sun rise over Tartarus III, its light catching on dragon wings and creating rainbows in the portal's swirling energy. The sight filled her with hope, not just for their victory today, but for all the victories to come. The elder dragons had chosen to leave through their gateway, to guide the refugees to their new home. But they left behind their knowledge, accessible through the bond Cassandra and Nexus had forged. A gift, they said, for the pair who had reminded them that sometimes the greatest power lies not in ancient magic or advanced technology, but in the simple act of reaching across boundaries to form unexpected friendships. As the portal finally closed, Cassandra felt Nexus's mind brush against hers, warm with affection and purpose. "Where shall we go next, small one?" She grinned, already plotting courses through the stars. "Wherever there are chains to break, friend. Wherever there are chains to break." Above them, the freed dragons soared in formation, their crystalline scales catching starlight and throwing it back 1,000-fold. They were no longer weapons or slaves, but a symbol of something the Vraxian Empire had never understood, that true strength comes not from dominating others, but from lifting them up. That the mightiest force in the universe isn't power, but partnership. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a young human girl and her dragon friend had proven that the greatest revolutions start not with armies or fleets, but with a single act of trust between two very different souls who chose to see past their differences and change the galaxy together.